your healing is your responsibility, the longer that we stay in that space of, well, because it's unfair, because it's somebody else's fault, the longer you're going to be in suffering. What do we do about that? People are lost in their roles that they learned how to be in order to get love. You might not want for things to change because you are in a system that benefits you. It is your responsibility on what we need to do with the life that we have been given. How can I hold what I went through with what my child needs at the same time? It's not about what I didn't get. It's about recognizing what I didn't get, but how does that blend with the uniqueness of child number one genuinely?
In today's episode, I'm joined by licensed professional counselor and certified trauma specialist, Dr. Laura Copley. She's the author of critically acclaimed Loving You Is Hurting Me and an international speaker. She's also created the Best Life Blueprint and Untangling the Toxic Dance courses. She's also host of the Tough Love Podcast with season 2 just around the corner. In this conversation, we talk about the pendulum swings of intergenerational trauma, narratives we carry that shape who we are, and how to rewrite them with compassion to unlock healing and strength. Take a listen. Thanks for your interest in sticking around to watch or listen to my podcast, dedicated to providing tools and resources to help you claim and live your best life. If you're loving these conversations, make sure you hit that bell to subscribe or follow and never miss an episode of the Chris Senise Podcast. Don't forget to tap the like and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. Let's grow this community of curious, driven minds together. You have given me so much to think about in researching you.
Oh, great.
Oh my goodness. So let's get started. Congratulations
tell me more.
On so many things. So Loving You Is Hurting Me.
Yes,
wow. Ma'am. Good for you. Untangling the Toxic Dance. That's
my
a course.
That is a course. Yes.
And then the Tough Love Podcast?
Yes. So the Tough Love Podcast came out a couple years ago, and then I landed the book deal. And then I got pregnant, and then now I'm fresh into infancy. So the season 2 reboot of Tough Love Podcast will be coming out at the beginning of the year. So there was a bit of a hiatus because, mega life events happened. But yes, the Tough Love Podcast season 1 is at least out.
Awesome. And just congrats on so many achievements and your baby.
Thank you so much.
All good things, but man, like seriously, just researching your work has given me so much to think about in my history.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So
give me all the juicy stuff.
Listen, I love therapy because I think talking your crap out is really important in life. I really advocate for it, even when you think things are great. Like, it doesn't have to be about not great things. So I'm a real advocate for that. And because I think it's important to talk to people, and I've said this a million times on my podcast, I think it's important to talk to people that aren't friends and family, because I think you're not 100% honest with them. I would even venture to say some people aren't honest in therapy, in their own innocence. Yeah.
And they're longing to not be rejected. And they're longing to be accepted, to find a place to belong. That's so natural. That's an instinct we all have. If we don't belong, if we are rejected, we don't survive. So it even makes sense in therapy. But you're right. The closer that we are to people, so whether that's our family and our origin story or a romantic partner, and we have some things to work through with our own fear of being authentic, the more likely we're going to wear a mask. And that's, and the work is, how do you trust yourself enough to show up authentically and and be genuinely embraced and accepted by another person. So yeah, it makes total sense. We do that. We're not going to survive unless we have that instinct to belong. So I get it.
Right, right. And that is going to lead me into trauma bonding because, you know, as an advocate for therapy, I do my therapy, but I'm not a therapist. I've never claimed to be, but I am fascinated by the human spirit. I'm in finance, I'm a musician, nothing to do with this stuff, but I love people and I love understanding myself, which is probably why I'm always in therapy. But I'm fascinated by people as well. And trauma bonding wasn't really something I'd heard of in those terms, although I can see in my life where all the trauma bonding has been. So, can you explain trauma bonding for our listeners?
Yes, and I'm going to explain it in two separate ways because there's the pop psychology way that you're going to see a lot come up on social media, maybe even walking down the Barnes and Noble aisle of the self-help section. And they're not wrong, it's just an incomplete definition. The definition that is out there more in mainstream is the trauma bond is this highly abusive, dangerous dynamic between a perpetrator and abuser and a victim. We see a lot in narcissistic abuse. So it gets entangled with that family of things, most often in pop psychology.
Okay.
I'm trying to reclaim the term because what is unfortunately happening is people who are on a quest of understanding themselves and understanding their relationships and the pain in their relationships, they're going to get help in these books, which, don't get me wrong, deserve to be out there because we do have these dynamics out there. But they're going to these books and they're trying to find resonance. And what's happening is they're overly identifying with victim mentality and overly identifying in fear that their partner might be an abuser or a narcissist or something like that. And it very well could be the case. It very well could be the case. We need those books. We need those experts. That is a very extreme version of what trauma bonding actually is. So if you were looking at the trauma bond, I want you to think about it as a metaphor. Every square is a shape, but not every shape is a square. So that means that narcissistic abuse and dangerous abuse is a trauma bond. But trauma bonding is also, generally speaking, two individuals with two different trauma histories from two different origin stories where they were raised not being unconditionally loved and valued, and they were hurt and pain was inflicted upon them emotionally, physically, neglect, some form or another. And what happens is they find each other and they're replicating similar patterns. And they're trying to connect in the only ways that they know how, and that's painfully and fearfully. So we're reenacting trauma dynamics and falling into these similar roles. And that is also under the umbrella of a trauma bond. And I want to open up that definition because I think it lets people then lean into the work from a place of self-trust and more open-endedness and a more exploratory mindset as opposed to, oh God, I am married to a narcissist. Well, let's untangle it a little bit more.
Right. And, if there's something that I've learned in my own experience and journey is that no matter how many people are involved, right, if it's, you and a partner or even you and the family you create, right, everyone plays a role in that. And, I believe there's always a level of accountability by everyone. And it doesn't make it wrong. It just perhaps that's your history and you need to, like you said, untangle that. But because I feel like even like in childhood, right, you could say this happened in my childhood, but at some point you have a responsibility and you continue to live this life or you change it.
This is something that I have my clients really breathe into because I have to offer this with an element of tough love, but also care and gentleness, because it is not your fault
Right.
what happened to you. It is not your fault, perhaps the family that you were born into. It is not your fault that perhaps, your mother had her own trauma that she was bringing into being a mother. A father had his own trauma, the intergenerational patterns of it all. It is not your fault. And unfortunately, it is your responsibility on what we need to do with the life that we have been given. Your healing is your responsibility. And if you are the one that's coming to therapy and not your family, not your mother, not your father, not your spouse, there's nothing that can be done about, their free will. It's landing in the hands of the person that has been hurt. And that is unfair. Yep. It absolutely is unfair. That's an injustice. Yes. Yes, it is. And the longer that we stay in that space of, well, because it's unfair, because it's somebody else's fault, means I shouldn't have to do it, the longer you're going to be in suffering. And I'm so sorry that that's the case. And that is also reality. So what do we do about that? Like, how do we lean into that work in a way that isn't invalidating to the fact that, this isn't your fault?
Right. I think you need to go into it with a lot of intention. I would say at least, and I'll just speak of my own experiences because it's what I have right now.
Yeah.
But the way that I look at it is that, especially when I saw in my own life patterns being repeated. So it's like I would find, and my parents were great, but there are things that you can realize about your parents of, I wish they hadn't done that. But as you grow older, you understand your parents a little bit better. And then you understand that they had their own traumas and that they were just doing the best that they could because that's all we're ever doing. But also just recognizing that I found myself falling into like similar patterns, right? And I think it was the patterns ultimately as an adult that said, I want to fix this because I don't want to live like that, right? And to me, that's so critical. I just don't know that most people can see it.
It is generationally brand new. The adults, the generations that have just began stepping into adulthood, the fresher adults, probably even millennials and younger, honestly. We are the first that it's been part of our collective consciousness to have language, to have permission to explore intergenerational patterns, for therapy to be actually approachable and not something to kind of keep secret, or that therapy means there's something wrong with you and that you're sick. So that again, that's not our parents' fault that wasn't part of their generation. So there is this generational upheaval where therapy is welcome, self-help is welcome. Actually, self-growth is something to it's like a badge of honor. So now, we get to teach our children that speaking with, that their emotions are valid, that speaking with their authenticity is how they should lead their life. So I mean, it's such a fresh concept culturally anyway.
And I know that one of the things that I've learned over time even is apologizing to my own kids. I have adult kids, but apologizing to my kids because I'm like, I'm sorry I raised you, making poor food choices, for example, because they grew up having Red 40 and ramen noodles in their lunch boxes. I mean, it was what I knew at the time. I thought giving them a hot lunch was the goal, but maybe an avocado sandwich would have been better. And I just didn't know that back then, So
no, we didn't know. My mom thought like the tanner the better. So as a child,
Okay.
she would put oil on my skin to get me tan. My baby's getting the best sunscreen that's out there, but it's
Exactly.
because there are things that we don't know, generation we didn't know. We had to be introduced
Yeah.
to things that now, I mean, there's a variety of reasons behind this with
Right.
technology and our ability to connect to experts and science and
Hmm.
research and across the world now with, I mean, obviously, like this is what we're doing right now. How,
Yeah.
our parents couldn't even fathom being able to have a conversation like this in real time.
Right.
So, yeah, times change and culture changes, and that also is playing out in creating more conscious relationships,
Yes.
permission to create conscious relationships,
Hmm.
permission to identify with painful patterns that you learned in your origin story,
Hmm.
and the right to be able to open the door to explore those things and what they really are, and if it's possible to heal those things as opposed to stamping a label on it and
Right.
calling somebody some sort of stigma or label, or just keeping like maybe our parents or or our grandparents just don't talk about it. Don't talk
No,
about
they
it.
didn't.
Or
I think
just
that's
stay. Don't get a divorce because, oh my gosh, but sweep it
right.
under the rug. Don't talk about it. Smile. Everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Hmm. That's a really good point because I remember when my niece was getting divorced, and she's like, I just don't want to disappoint people. She's 27, and I know that's generational because I
And this,
remember saying to her, people would be disappointed if you stayed in a situation that wasn't right for you. And I'm all for advocating for staying together and having a healthy marriage, but I'm also advocating for healthy marriages, right? I wouldn't want her in
right.
a bad situation. And I remember her saying that, and I'm like, I think everybody would be very proud of you about getting out of a situation that wasn't right for you, that wasn't healthy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, now that I mentioned my niece, it makes me think of my sister because I saw a podcast with you where
Oh,
you were talking about the perfect child and what that's all about. And so,
oh, the golden
yeah,
child.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
am one of three siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest, my brother's middle child, and my sister's the oldest. And so, I mean, until just recently, right? Just
Right.
recently in my whole life. So I'm having a conversation with my sister telling her, it was always just like a running joke that you were the favorite child. Like we all knew that you were the favorite child.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yeah.
went from being hurt to laughing. And her response to me was like, you guys have no
You
idea
have no idea.
what it was like to
Yeah.
expect to be the perfect child, what that
No
was like
idea.
for me.
Right.
And I remember seeing you on a podcast where you were talking about that and how
Mm-hmm.
that's a trauma as well.
It is. It is. And a trauma that is often so overlooked
Hmm.
because when you're the favorite or the golden child, it looks to outsiders like you have everything, like you're spoiled, like your family, gives you everything, that so many people are proud of you. And maybe in one dimension that is true, but the part that you have to play to uphold that every day of your life for 18 years, 30 years,
Hmm.
however long it
Right.
is extraordinarily exhausting. Plays out in your marriage, in your relationships, because then you have to
Hmm.
become the perfect wife.
Oh,
And if you're not validated by your husband, by your spouse, in the
hmm.
same way your parents did to you, you don't understand. It's not computing.
Oh,
Maybe the part that you play isn't the way that he needs to be loved, she needs to be loved,
yeah.
or something's going on, and then all of a sudden there is a bond that's being created by trauma.
Hmm.
It's not malicious, it's not narcissistic, it's not evil, it's not abusive, but it's painful
Right.
because two people are lost in their roles that they learned how to be in order to get love. And it's not
Wow.
playing out the same way. So even
Yeah.
that, you see, like that is bonded through trauma. It's a type of trauma bond that's not malicious, it's not evil, it's not narcissistic, but it's still
Yeah.
painful and still related to trauma.
Right.
So
And
I was the hero child. So not necessarily
oh,
golden child, I was the hero child, which it was my responsibility to redeem my parents from their unfinished business, from their childhood. So it was my responsibility to be the senior cheerleader for the football squad because that was top notch. There was only 9 of us. Like it was
okay.
my job because my mom got cut, you know, from cheer. It was my dad's unfinished business to he always said that he peaked in high school, that there was nothing after really. So it was my job to make him proud, to do something with my life other than peaking in high
Yeah.
school. Neither of my parents went to college. So of course, I got the PhD. I went the whole
Yeah.
route. So I was the hero child. I gave them purpose and meaning. And that was very exhausting, but I made it look good. Made it look good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I can speak now as fresh 40.
Hmm.
I can speak now as being like,
You're
I did
beautiful.
I did those things out of fear. It was an
Oh,
anxious step. At every step of everything that I did was done fearfully. None of
same.
it was organic.
Yeah.
Did I enjoy things like cheer and dance? Did I enjoy what I was learning as stepping into the realm of psychology and counseling?
Hmm.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved those things, but the force behind it, the necessity behind it, wasn't
Yeah.
organic. It was fear based.
You're right. That's tough to break out of, right? Like, how
Sure.
do you shift from I do everything because I'm so afraid of things and it
Yeah.
has to be perfect and it has to work out versus, oh, this is what I want to do. I mean, it doesn't mean it's not what you want to do, but
Right.
that's a huge shift if you've been fearful your whole life. And the
Hmm.
fear is what? Because I know you've talked about rejection and abandonment being different things, but was the fear something else?
I think the fear was laced with how so with my parents, their disappointment was so palpable. Parents get disappointed.
Of course.
Parents will get disappointed, sad,
Of course.
heartbroken for their kids. Like it,
Yeah.
it happens.
Of
But
course it
their
does.
level of disappointment was so personalized. Like, for example, in 3rd grade, when I got into a normal age appropriate spelling group, I tested into the normal age appropriate spelling group. Because I didn't get advanced, I went home, my mom cried and locked herself in the bedroom and then
And
called the teacher in tears, wondering what's wrong with me. That's what I mean by the just everything was so delicate. And there was
yeah.
never anything like even if I love to read and I love to write,
Hmm.
reading and writing as a 3rd grader was laced with fear because if I didn't get it right, I would be walking home to feeling like it was my fault for ruining my family.
Oh, wow. That's a lot
You
to
know?
carry.
Yeah.
That's a
And you
load.
don't know it when you're 8. You don't know it when you're
Yeah.
8. You think it's normal. You think that that's normal love. You think that that's how that's how parents respond when their
Hmm.
child doesn't perform. You don't get it. And now being a
Right.
parent myself,
Hmm.
what?
Yeah. You know, part of why I even wanted to do this podcast, unrelated to my professions even, which is funny, is because as a parent, like I mentioned earlier, as you get older, especially when you've got kids, you really start to understand your parents a lot better. And there was a
Hmm.
lot of friction with me and my parents because I was always very independent, and that was tangled with rebellion. And I'm like, it's literally not the same thing, but that's how it was for me.
Yeah.
But then growing, and I think I've heard you mention this also about, it might have been the hero thing, but where everything you didn't get as a kid is everything you want to give your kids. So I was the last kid. I feel like they were exhausted by the time they were raising me and what have you. But I felt then that, like, with my kids, I had to be so extra what I felt I didn't get, only to see them become adults and have their own crap. And I'm like, did I get this wrong? Like, I thought I was really, in therapy because I wanted to be this great mom for them and I wanted to give them everything. But there's this confusion that happens between trying to give your kids everything, but are you giving them what they need? And that can be very confusing for a parent also.
It's absolutely confusing. And that brings me back to just generational pendulum swinging. Because we will even see generationally speaking, like the Xers who were latchkey kids. The Gen Xers had commercials for their parents that said, "It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?" So they were raised differently. And as a result of not having the attunement and the slowness and the gentleness, they have stepped into being parents that maybe do that to another level. And then, of course, now we have Gen Zs. They have their babies are Gen Zs. And now Gen Zs are getting, can I swear on here? Sorry. I don't.
You can be yourself.
Gen Zs are getting shit on because, they're entitled and spoiled and every generation is millennials. We were taught, you're too soft. You're too emotional. Every generation is stepping into something because their parents are trying to be something else that they were not.
Right.
And we're overcorrecting.
Yes.
But that's been happening since the dawn of time. So that's nothing that you did weird or wrong. It's nothing that I'm doing weird or wrong. It's us trying to slow down enough to figure out what glitched with me and how can I not do that with my child. Now, in our process of not wanting to do that, we pendulum swing to the other extreme. So our quest now, as being kind of like now the generations that are stepping into full adulthood, is how can I hold what I went through with what my child needs at the same time? That it's not about me. It's not about what I didn't get.
Right.
It's about recognizing what I didn't get, but how does that blend with the uniqueness of who my child is as an individual?
Right.
And how do I personalize that? And that's not easy, but it has to be a more conscious and slow and an intentional thing. And that's how we break intergenerational trauma, so our babies don't have to do it.
Right. And it's really tough. I think the benefit and the advantage that these newer generations have is the information that they get. Yes. So your podcast, your book, your course, this podcast, other podcasts, right? It can be information overload, right? Because you're trying to correct the understanding that's out there about trauma bonding, right? But I think the information is good to have. I don't know that we should be watching podcasts and coming up with like diagnoses and stuff like that, right? You take it in stride and you just go learning and you interpret information the way you want. But as an example to what you just said, I can share this, right? I'm a Gen Xer. I'm parent to a millennial and a Gen Xer.
Oh.
Sorry, Gen Zer. I'm a Gen Xer.
Gen Z. Yeah. Well, how did you pull that? What?
Well, I mean, I had my daughter super young, and then my kids are 7 years apart. So, and I can see the polarity between my two kids. my daughter laughs sometimes. She's like, I feel like I'm going to be like in a retirement home with you because we're only 19 years apart and stuff like that. But I can just see how it played out. And I can see how the extra that I was giving, how it was different with both of them. And I think, I sometimes feel bad for my daughter because I figured a lot of things out with my son.
Normal.
Who's a totally different generation. But there was like a switch at some point that said, stop giving them what you want to give them and give them what they need. Part of how I was raised with the 3 kids was you give everything equally. Well, not everybody needs the same thing. Why would you do that? And so, but it took me a while to figure that out. And then I'm thinking, okay, my son's like 15 by the time I figured this out. And my daughter's away at college.
Yeah.
But I think the information's out there.
Yes.
But yeah, I can see. I think this is why the podcast has become so important to me. I can see what I did and why they are where they are.
And you can speak to it. You can, it's not too late. It's not over because what you can still model for them, they're both still developing minds. It's not over. You can be the parent that role models for them ownership and language and emotional intelligence and saying, oh, this is what happened between the time I was 19 and 26. Yeah. This is what happened, and not as an excuse, but here is the reality of what that meant for you. And I see that. And how do you want to talk about it? Can we talk about it? What does that mean to you? We can still have conversations because once upon a time, we thought that once we reached a certain place in our human development that we were stagnant, that things we stopped the ability to expand and grow. And honestly, that really wasn't that long ago that we were still in that mindset. But we know now we're constantly able to heal and to shift and to change and to mentally grow and psychologically grow and emotionally grow, especially pre-25, where we still don't have a prefrontal cortex. So we can still do that work. We can be the generation that steps in and owns and speaks to in a way that wasn't done for us.
I would agree. I would agree with that because I think generations before me, everything, I remember growing up with, because I'm your parent and I say so.
Yeah. Or even if you said hey, mom, dad, this is what it was like for me. Well, I did my best. I know, we know you did what you thought was best or what you were equipped with. We know. And that's so dismissive. That's the parent holding up a wall and saying, I did my best. There's nothing else to talk about.
Right. Live with it.
But deal with it. Live with it. Now that's on you because I did my best. No, we're not done. We're not done. We can sit with our 20-year-old kids, 40-year-old kids, and listen and talk and communicate and give spaces for exploration of what this has meant generationally and heal and repair. We can do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to also recognize birth order. Child 1, whether you're 19 and it happens or 35 when it happens. I was 34. Whether you were 19 when you became a parent or 34 when I became a parent. Child 1 is the child that teaches you how to be a mother. Even if I had a PhD in attachment and psychology and the human emotions, even with that, which, that prepared me more for being a mother, yes. But child number one genuinely teaches you. You are not the same parent to child one as you are to child two, for better or worse.
Right.
The pros and cons to both.
Yes.
And that's why there you'll find, okay, like we had the same parents, they're same blood, same genetics. Maybe we treated them fairly, like they had the same number of Christmas presents underneath the tree, whatever that looks like for you.
Right.
But they are not the same.
Ever.
Ever.
I mean, I see it with my siblings and me. I've seen it in, family friends growing up, right? So if you had families that like just extended family, right? And you would see multiple siblings, never the same.
No.
Although
not the same.
Although kind of going back to what you were saying about the first child, there are similarities amongst siblings, right? The first child tends to have similar
right. Yeah. We have first child syndrome, middle child syndrome, the baby. Yes. So we definitely have, there are some commonalities in terms of their psyche that we have. The first child is the one that represents the family. Like they are leading the way. So they do tend to have more perfectionistic tendencies. Maybe they tend to be more go-getters. There are things like that. The baby might stay younger longer. So the baby, like the baby might reach a certain age where child one was doing all of these like check mark, and the baby's still treated like the baby and hasn't really learned how to step into some of those more like other roles sometimes. Now, and of course, the middle child overlooked, like, what's my identity? Sometimes they're actually the more rebellious one at times, or they tend to be the lost, forgotten child that tends to get overlooked. So they have to find other ways to shine. Yeah, so we can definitely go into that, but all of that is roles that we learned how to take that then play out in our adulthood and how we bond with other important people like our romantic partners. So it starts to play out. So the work is being able to recognize what parts that you had to step into, what parts had to be neglected and pushed aside, and how to heal that and repair that and find some sort of resonance between all things that should be authentically you.
Right. So in your earlier relationships, when you're figuring stuff out, right? Like you may end up being in a relationship with someone has a personality similar to one of your parents, right? It's like what you're used to, right? And I would say in earlier relationships, it could be always or never, but because it's the type of relationship you're used to or used to seeing. Is that factual?
It is very common. So, and I want you to think about it in terms of reactivity. So we're either reacting through a place of replication. So we replicate because we're reacting based on what we experience. So, this was the model that I have. So my reaction is to replicate that. Other times people will be so aversive to what they lived. They'd be like, I will never, ever, ever, ever have somebody that does X, Y, Z. So what they'll do in terms of reactivity is they'll pendulum swing the other way and be so aversive to anything that gives them like a type of subtle cue of their father, their mother, like that sort of thing. But in the process of that, we're still reacting from that origin model. It's the same thing is what I'm getting at. You're still reacting from that model that was presented to you. So whether you're replicating it or you're doing the exact opposite.
Right.
We're cutting off our ability to genuinely explore another person because it either has to look one way or it can't in any way, shape, or form look that way.
Right.
Does that Make sense?
Yeah, and that and I'm assuming part of it is because it's what you recognize, it's what you're familiar with. It's
It's what you're conscious of. Yeah. It's what you're conscious of. And then subconsciously,
mm,
your your impulse, you're not trusting anything else based on what you've decided is right and wrong
hmm
from that at such a young age. And so then, we're stepping into our 30s and 40s, and now we have this permission to deeply explore what
hmm
happened to us as children.
right.
And then we start to see patterns and dynamics. What are we going to do about it? Are you
Right.
with a partner? Are you with a partner that's going to be willing to do that alongside of you and wants to grow, to actually
True.
form genuine intimacy? Or
Yeah.
are you with somebody that is, hey, no, this is what you presented to me. This is what
hmm
has been normalized. Anything other than that is like a betrayal to the relationship.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Oh
Because that
wow.
happens. That happens when where one partner is wanting to do the work and the other one is just like, "What's wrong? Well, I don't understand. Everything's fine. Can't we just go back to the way things were? That was really working out for me." Well,
Mm,
it wasn't working out for somewhere along there. It wasn't working out for somebody in the relationship.
right.
They were lost. It was working out for you at the expense of somebody else.
Mm,
And you, the other person, you might not want for things to change because you are in a system that benefits you. And now you're being asked to do some hard work and in some of the share in some of the benefit, which means you have to do some work and you don't want to do it.
right. Is that where loving you is hurting me? I'm curious about the title of your book, right? How did you choose that, right? Because loving you is hurting me is that makes me think, right?
Right.
Because is it because we're choosing those I mean, this is how intergenerational patterns work, right? It's like
Mhm.
I'm loving you, it's hurting me, and we have children, and then we repeat all those things. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, yes, it's in our journey of finding ways to connect and bond and love each other. We are reenacting pain,
Mm,
neglect,
yeah.
misattunement, and most of the time the hurt that I'm referring to is this death by a thousand cuts. That in the beginning, the little paper cuts you learn how to
Yeah.
deal with,
Mm-hmm.
10 years, 20 years, 30
Yeah.
years, 40 years of being ignored or unappreciated, like not appreciated, um, condescended, being condescending, um, little picks and fights, who's in control, who's not, who wins the fight, who always has to apologize. These little
Right.
death by it starts to add up and it's extremely painful. And then one person is then stepping into therapy and saying, I have been unhappy for so long, and the other person just has no idea
Yeah.
because a system has been normalized for so long.
Yeah.
That's typically what I find most of the time. It's something in that family of things. Then, of
Yeah.
course, there's the extreme where somebody is verbally abusive and physically abusive. And yes, you have more um, extremely toxic manipulation. Yes, we have things on the other side too that we make space for. But a
Right.
lot of the time, "Loving You is Hurting Me" is written more for those individuals who are experiencing the death by a thousand cuts in their relationships and
Yeah.
what that has meant, why that has happened, where that comes from, and then what can we do about it.
Do you have a statistic that you can share about the number of relationships that are truly, I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, right?
Mm-mm.
There,
Right.
but how often, I just feel like everyone's got trauma, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, I just, I don't know. I even feel like, I don't know, from the moment you know that's your person, you should be in therapy. Like, I'm a believer in that, right? Get ahead of stuff because
Yeah.
everyone's got shit, you know? Everyone's got
Hmm.
something, you know? And I
Yeah. I
think
mean,
it only helps.
yeah, I think yes, I think at the moment that you are finding somebody that you are even considering, hey, you want to do this? You want to do this life thing together? You need to make sure that that person is on a similar page as you around self-growth
Right.
and relationship growth. You need to know that that person is open for this to be a journey,
Yeah.
and that they are willing to communicate about their past, that they're willing to communicate about their limitations and what their past has done to them, that they
Right.
are able to speak to the fact that just because they went through XYZ does not mean that they won't do the work to self
Right.
improve. You need to make sure that that's your person. And
Yeah.
whether that means stepping into therapy or jointly doing like Sue Johnson's Hold Me Tight program, like whatever it is, finding something that is, it needs to be part of your relationship
Hmm.
zeitgeist, your collective
Yeah.
consciousness of this is part of our, this is what we do.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, because, and when we started this conversation, you talked about how people can mask things, but I'm a believer in fake it till you make it, but not in the things that are like, I mean, work is one of those things, of course, because I do believe that there's always an element of, I don't know how to do this, I can figure it out, and you can have that level of confidence in yourself. But I think in partnerships and marriages, if your plan is to be in it, to the end, that openness and that unmasking has to like just kind of be
Yeah.
there, you know?
Right. Yeah, and there's a time and a place for fake it till you make it. It is
Right,
not incorrect. There's a
right.
time and a place for it. Like my little girl was in private early enrichment programs. She's in first grade now. It's her first year of public school. She was nervous. You know what? This is what confidence looks like.
Yeah,
I know you don't feel confident right now,
yeah,
but this breathing and putting
mm-hmm,
your head up and smiling,
yeah,
that's what that's how you can walk into your school. And then when you're
right,
home, come to me, melt into me, tell me how it
yeah,
was,
yeah,
show me every colors, every emotional color that you had, but this is how
yeah,
you can walk in. There's a time and a place.
yeah,
We can also pull on that, but in a different way when it comes to learning skills that feel weird at first, but
yeah,
are helpful.
right,
So, yes, it might feel weird to sit down and have a really conscious, emotionally attuned, vulnerable conversation with your partner.
mm-hmm,
That might not feel authentic at first.
right,
It might feel weird at first.
right,
But the goal is to find a way where you can genuinely, authentically express in your own way. And
right,
then eventually, in doing this things that feels weird, it's not really about faking it, but it is about doing something hard in a way that
yeah,
you haven't done before. So, are we faking playing guitar for the first time when we have to be like, like awkward? We're not faking it.
yeah,
We're learning how to play guitar.
right,
And it's hard and it doesn't feel natural and it's not in
right,
muscle memory. That doesn't mean we're faking it, but it does mean that we're sort of overriding that impulse of shying away from something that is weird.
right, right,
So can we do hard things as adults? Yep,
yeah, yeah,
we can do hard things. Tough love. Do it anyway.
yeah,
Give it a shot.
yeah. Um, let's move into this toxic dance real quickly. What is the toxic dance?
Yep. The toxic dance, I pull that from some of Sue Johnson's work. And for those who are more familiar in the landscape of therapy and couples work, she is just like the godmother of couples therapy.
Yeah.
He mapped out a type of relationship pattern that I began noticing in more extreme ways
Okay.
as a trauma-informed therapist. So I brought in some of her work around, sometimes we attract individuals whose ways of reacting to being misunderstood or stress or relationship conflict is opposite or different.
Okay.
So for example, one of us might be real go-getters when it comes to conflict. Like, we're going to talk about it now. I'm going to communicate with you in the moment. And we're like, let's get to it. Let's chase this problem. Let's name it. Let's pursue it. Let's get it handled. And then you have other people who are like, whoa, that's a lot. I'm emotionally flooded. I need some time to think about what I'm going to say. I actually need some time to really process what I feel. This is going too fast. And you're triggering me. Like, this is too overstimulating.
Right.
Now, what happens when those two people meet is the pursuer is triggering the withdrawer, but the withdrawer is also triggering the pursuer. Because the more the withdrawer pulls away, the more the pursuer is like, where are you going? We have something that needs to get handled.
Yeah.
And so it creates this chasing dynamic. We can have that. That's often something that I see. There's the withdrawal dynamic, which is actually extremely that's dangerous to be in because nobody's handling the problem.
Right.
So we need to talk about something. No, just kidding. Everything's fine. Sweep it under the rug. And then you have the pursue dynamic where two people are trying to handle the problem, but what they end up doing is attacking each other. And then we start to draw a line in the sand and become enemies because we're actually pointing fingers at the other person.
Yeah.
As opposed to talking about the problem in a way that we can fix it and heal it. So she gave us that landscape of language. What I have found is through the lens of your origin story, like neglect in childhood, being gaslit as a child, the childhood roles in which you had to fall into, the golden child, the hero child, the lost child, the scapegoat child, some of the trauma that you experienced in your childhood, what was modeled to you by your parents and how your mother and father or your parents, how they showed each other worth and value, all of this complex trauma that might have been smuggled into the relationship from a place of trauma in your nervous system. You're doing that as a way of surviving. So you're withdrawing because of trauma. You're pursuing because of trauma. So I bring in more of the trauma-informed language to that dance. So the toxic dance is how your origin trauma, your attachment style is what Sue Johnson would say, but your attachment trauma is being played out and reenacted in your current relationship. And how you guys are triggering each other.
Yeah. Well, Dr.
Well, there's that.
Like I said, you've given me a lot to think about, just like going through my history. And, I apologize to my parents, my siblings, my kids, if I said anything on this episode that was, TMI. But I think it's important to share experiences for other people to learn and sort of just understand your work and what you do. And I really congratulate you. And
thank you.
Congratulations on your infant. You have another one that's 7 years old, 6 years old?
I have a 6-year-old and a 6-month-old. Yes.
Oh, so see, we've kind of got the same gap going here.
Yep.
but they may be in different generations. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
My two from different generations have been a handful, but thank you so much for being on here. I appreciate your time and your energy and your love. So thanks for your interest in sticking around to watch or listen to my podcast, dedicated to providing tools and resources to help you claim and live your best life. If you're loving these conversations, make sure you hit that bell to subscribe or follow and never miss an episode of the Chris Senise Podcast. Don't forget to tap the like and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration today. Let's grow this community of curious, driven minds together.